Hi everyone, I'm Michael Stisin. This is Mobile Growth Podcast, where we discuss how to launch, grow, and successfully monetize mobile apps, and we invite industry experts to learn everything from product to user acquisition and monetization strategies. And today our guest is Alice Muir. Alice is a retention squad lead at Phiture, a award-winning mobile growth consultancy, working with the teams behind apps like Soundcloud, Headspace, VISCO, and many other very well-known apps. Hi, Alice. Thanks for joining us. To mention that I know that you won this App Marketer of the Year award at the Berlin's App Promotion Summit. Very well done. Congrats on that.
Thank you very much. I know that Conversion also won the best revenue platform as well. Congrats on.
Yeah, we did. I even have it here on my table, looking at it every day.
I've got mine somewhere behind my laptop as well, so nice to have it on my desk as motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really nice event. Anyway, so you are in charge of retention, right? Do I understand it correctly that a lot of the projects that you are involved with, you're helping mobile apps to increase user retention within the app?
So I'm a squad lead at Phiture on the retention team. So that means that I've got, as you mentioned, a portfolio of clients that I work with, and I help them with all retention topics. So that could cover things like onboarding, activation, engagement. It can also cover things like subscription optimization and churn prevention as well.
Got it. So how do you usually start to work with an app? Let's say a company approach Phiture, they think they have some issues with retention. Let's say how the project usually looks like.
Sure. So what we normally do is we start by running what we call the Phiture retention audit. Typically, an audit of an app could take anywhere between 1 to 2 months, right up to like 6 months, depending on the project. And the goal of this audit is really to understand what the gaps are in the retention strategy. So some of the things that we do are, for example, mapping out the user journey, defining together with the client what the activation and core retention metrics are, and also understanding the use cases for the app, and really importantly, the natural frequency of usage as well. So we kind of pull analysis on all of those topics, and that enables us to see like where the gaps in the strategy are, and helps us to kind of formulate a roadmap and strategy for the upcoming months.
Do you have like maybe the key metrics that you monitor during this audit? Let's say, like what are specific metrics that you are looking at?
Sure. So things like onboarding completion is a good one. The activation metric, we usually, as I said, we define that with the client. So that would be something like looking at what the setup metric or setup behaviors are for the app. For example, something where it's creative or photo editing app, the setup metric might be to start editing, for example. But the core retention metric would be to complete a project, because that's the thing that's going to bring you back into the app. So those types of things we look at we look in the data to understand what are the core events that people are performing. And then from there, we decide which events are the setup events and which are the retention metric events. And we usually work together with the client to kind of agree on what metrics we'd be using there. I think.
Yeah. So how do you identify if there is a problem actually? So you measured the metrics, you came up with some metrics for a specific app. How do you know whether it's good or bad, whether anything can be improved there, if it's like a significant problem, for example, or there is just very small room for improvement?
Yeah, this is a great question. It really depends on the project from our perspective. Sometimes clients come to us and they really know what it is that they're looking for, and they know what issues they have. Other times it's a case of us building out this retention audit. And once we have various different analyses, particularly funnel analysis that we look at, can give us a great idea of like where massive drop-offs potentially are happening within the user lifecycle. And that really enables us to visualize where the problems in the strategy are. So, for example, we might pull an onboarding funnel with a product analytics tool, something like Amplitude, for example, or even Mixpanel. And we might look at the core events that users perform within that onboarding period. And then if we see that there's a massive drop off between people who start the sign up process, for example, if there's mandatory sign up and then don't complete it, that would be one of our kind of key areas to work on within the life cycle and within the strategy.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that retention starts like from the onboarding. You should actually provide great onboarding experience to make sure that user understands what this app's for, how it solves the problem, and this kind of the first step to have great retention for an app.
Absolutely, yeah. And some people even suggest that it begins before that. It begins really in the stores and making sure that you've got the right creatives and the right the right kind of keywords or whatever in the stores as well, so that people know as soon as they see your app for the first time, they know what they're going to be downloading and they know what to expect.
And how do you approach churn? How do you measure it, and what are some maybe typical reasons for churn? How to even understand the reasons why users are churning?
Sure. So there's lots of different reasons why users might be churning. One of them that we see quite often when we run retention analysis on our side is that quite often apps are attracting the wrong types of customers. So one of the things that we do is we can do a segmented retention analysis by channel, by acquisition channel. So that's basically, again, using something like a product analytics tool like Amplitude, for example, we would layer different segments that have come in from different channels on a retention chart to understand which channels are performing well and which are not. And that's kind of where we would also collaborate with our user acquisition teams just to make sure that, we can get some insights from them too. Another thing as well is sometimes it can be the case that customers just aren't achieving like what they come onto the app to achieve. Particularly if you're in the space that's really competitive, competitor analysis is a really good thing to do to make sure that whatever you're providing, it is better than hopefully the main competitors in the space. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. And one that kind of gets overlooked is customer support. I think if you have a particularly bad customer support system in place, or if it's lacking in some way, that can also be a major reason for churn as well, if users are not able to get the help that they need to get started.
You mentioned that you measure, at least you try to look at the data for retention by user acquisition channel. Do you have any insights, maybe like from your experience, what user acquisition channels have higher retention? I think from our experience, I would say that Apple Search Ads, it kind of looks like for a lot of our clients, Apple Search Ads shows great retention. Somehow people who found the app initially through App Store seems to retain better than those who came from like Facebook ads, let's say. Do you have any ideas, insights on that?
Yeah, we would probably agree with that. I think from my perspective, I don't have a huge amount of experience with acquisition in of itself, but I did ask a colleague about this, and they said that TikTok, Apple Search, and Google and Meta was slightly less effective, but the big ones are TikTok, Apple Search, and Google. And then there's a bunch of other channels such as DSPs, programmatic exchanges like IronSource, Unity, for example, that have worked well in my colleague's experience. But she said, and actually I would say this too, that it really varies a lot per app, vertical and obviously strategy as well. So I think it's one of those ones where people always want a one size fits all answer. But it depends on the particular product. I have myself experienced a situation where an app that I worked with gains a lot of organic traffic from TikTok because something that a product that or a feature that they had within the product went viral. And I know that TikTok in that particular instance was pretty bad quality in terms of people not really being willing to convert to trial or paid membership. And then the interesting thing was that the thing that went viral, the feature that went viral was actually a premium feature. So that, yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting insight. But unfortunately, as I said, I don't have a lot of experience on like the paid acquisition side of things.
Do you have like any maybe examples of what specific techniques could boost retention rates? Like what specific measures? So let's say you did the audit, you see there are some maybe problems, maybe some room for improvement for this app. So what can be done actually to increase the retention rate?
One of the really important things that we do is we run what's called correlation analysis. So we look at different events in the product analytics tool to understand which events correlate with higher retention rates. And we spend like a large part of the audit really looking into that data and that information. And then what we do is, like, for example, if we saw that users of Headspace, this is just an example, if users of Headspace that completed the first basics pack, meditation pack, were much more likely to be retained beyond day 30, for example, then our strategy would be to get as many people to complete that basics pack as possible. So there's two sort of approaches to this that run in tandem. So the first one is really understanding what are the key events that correlate to higher retention rates. So really understanding the data. And the second one is using a multi-channel approach. So things like email, in-app messages, and push notifications to sort of build a strategy that gets more people to perform those events. So those are the two things that we'd be looking to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So first you have to identify what type of events can kind of correlate with high retention, and then you figure out how through communication, what tools are there to kind of push people to complete this. I did use, by the way, Headspace myself. I think I completed all the basic basic levels, and indeed I've been using it for a couple of years. But finally, I switched to Calm now. I don't know. I don't know why. I just wanted for a change, to see some new content. Maybe I'll switch back to Headspace sometime later.
The basics pack is great because it really educates people on key meditation topics, things or techniques, things like the noting technique. I remember when I did the basics pack, I learned about the noting technique, which is where you simply sort of consciously say to yourself when your mind wanders that you're you just note it that your mind has wandered, and then it's a kind of a method to bring yourself back, bring your focus back, and bring your attention back to your breathing and your focus. And they were just so good at explaining that during that kind of basics package or basics series that I think it's always something that's kind of stuck with me. And I think that's something that a lot of apps need to improve, is really like educating people on the product at in the kind of beginning phases. Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely agree. Specifically with Headspace, indeed, I think I know by heart already this like a basic course. It's like it really learns you how to start with the meditation. It's an amazing product.
Yeah.
So what could be some other things that you can test to improve retention? Maybe some practical advice to our listeners, to other mobile app companies and developers. What are some low-hanging fruit? What's to test first?
One of the things that I would advise is don't take a one-size-fits-all approach with channels. Really dig into the data with your channels to understand which channel works better for what segment or what type of user. For example, I worked on a project lately where we discovered that women were more than 2.5 times as likely to click through and convert from email than men. So I think like definitely using a multi-channel approach is great, but it also, trying to figure out which profiles of users actually fit with each channel type and kind of strategizing around that too.
Got it. Is there maybe something you would like to speak about, to share additionally? Like, what's your advice to mobile companies and mobile developers?
Sure. I mean, my big thing at the moment that I'm looking into is subscription optimization, and how retention and subscription optimization obviously plug into each other, right? And what are some of the things we can do? One of my big sort of pieces of work from 2022 is the publication of the subscription stack, which is basically a zoomed in version of the mobile growth stack that focuses on subscriptions alone. And the way that we're describing it is that it's a strategic framework that helps anybody to be able to optimize subscriptions or operate a subscription business. So I'm really excited about that. And I think that having a framework around some of these topics that everybody's kind of chatting about in the industry at the moment is going to be really helpful. And within that, we talk about everything from acquisition to activation and subscriber activation and engagement, right down to things like expansion revenue, where we're not just talking about how to get subscribers in the first place, but we're also talking about how to make more money from people that might already exist as paying subscribers within your product. So that's something that I'm super interested in.
How can our listeners find this materials?
So it's going to be published on the Phiture website this week. I believe we're aiming for a Wednesday publish date, but I'll update you on that as soon as it's live.
Okay, so it will be available to download from Phiture website, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Got it. I guess I don't have other questions. Maybe you can just tell us how our listeners can find you. What's the best way to connect online? Maybe they want to follow up with some questions on user retention.
Sure. I've tried Twitter a few times, and I don't know about you, Michael, but I just cannot get hooked on Twitter.
Yeah, same.
People.
Yeah, kind of same with me. I'm trying to force myself to go more into it and to post more, engage more. Haven't worked yet for me, but I'm trying.
Yeah, it's funny. There's people that just naturally sort of take to Twitter, and it's really easy for them to tweet all the time. I've tried it a few times. It's just not my thing. I love LinkedIn. Everybody in my team laughs at me because I'm like, I love LinkedIn. It's like my Facebook. I just think the feed is really great to follow, different people in product and listen to what they're saying, and also find new kind of podcasts and content and stuff. And that's also where I post the majority of my content too. So definitely LinkedIn. You can always reach out to me if you've got questions and things. But yeah, between LinkedIn and the Phiture blog is where you'll find the majority of my content.
Got it. So anyone listening, if you want to reach out, just look up Alice Muir on LinkedIn and connect. Okay, Alice, thanks so much for sharing your expertise today. It was a great conversation. Thanks a lot.
No problem, Michael. It was great to see you, and congrats again on winning the award.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.